My name is Steve Henline. I'm the interviewer. I'm interviewing Vearl Decker. It's the 16th day of March, 2019. All right, Vearl, goes the questions. Do you remember where you were born and your parents' names?
Yes,
Could you tell me that?
born in Salt Lake. Shoot, I already forgot.
Well, just what year it was is all.
The year, how old am I?
Yes, sir.
10, 29, 24.
1924. Do you remember your parents' names? Your mother and father?
Whose name?
Your mom and dad?
Oh, yeah, my mother was Elaine Morris, maiden name, and my dad was Alan Decker.
Did you have brothers and sisters? And did any of them serve in the military?
I had one sister and a half sister and a half brother, and none of them served in the military.
Okay. What did you do before you got drafted?
Many things. I've ended up as a general contractor. That I put telephone booths in Southern California for 15 years.
Do you remember, let's see, would you tell us what branch of the service you were in and the fact that you were drafted, right? That you were drafted?
Yeah.
And so if you just, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just say, I was drafted in whenever that was, if you recall.
I think it was in early 44, 40, I was in the 7th Army, the 45th Division.
Okay. Do you remember where you went to basic training and anything about being in basic?
Yes, I had my basic training in Camp Roberts, California, and it was terrible, hot, and I didn't complete my complete training because they needed more people to go overseas. So I went over and see, you want to know how I got there and stuff?
I do.
I went over, I think it was the Queen Mary, and I came back in the Queen Elizabeth. Went directly into, went right into France, and then from France, I went right into battle in Germany, and I was put in as I was trained with an M1 rifle as an infantryman, and I had no education. I never went to school when I was young, so I had no ability to be anything but the lowest, a foot soldier. And so I was put in a group, a battalion that walked wherever they went. Otherwise, there's no transportation. We never had, and we slept when we went into town, and then what we were supposed to do in the way of battle, we had to go outside of the town and dig in And then our food was brought to us, K rations and stuff, from the rear echelon, which back several miles from the battle, the battles were where and I can remember that right the first part of the war there, the ground was very muddy and it had, winter was just over, and the soldiers had these canvas leggings for boots, and their feet would rot off. They would get wet and rot off. Finally got waterproof boots for them. And but my whole experience was mainly going from one battle to the next. And the only time I had any transportation, one time we went into town and we all gradually went to the bicycle shop. Everybody got a bicycle. And the other time we rode on a tank one time, but it was mainly all just walking. And I went to quite a few battles. It was just from one to the next, very little rest time. I can remember one experience was that we were going from this town over through an open field to a town, and we all spread out real wide because of gunfire. If you're close together, they kill too many at one time. And all of a sudden, the ground, dirt flew up alongside of our feet as we were going. And then all of a sudden, a jet went over. Scraped the jet. Bullets never hit anybody, but you could see the bullets, the dirt fly up alongside of you where the bullets were hitting. They had jet airplanes there. They had what they called the Autobahn, I think it was, that was designed as an airstrip to begin with. Now it's a speed strip or some kind of thing. Down the center of it was a green, and it was for airplanes to go take off in. And on both sides of the Autobahn, there were tree canopies, solid, and jets were parked inside of this, underneath their heading out onto the where you take off. Hundreds of them. Can you imagine what would happen if they had the fuel to run them things? Their tanks, their tanks were the best they were German-made, the best. You couldn't destroy one. On ours is one lousy. Ours could be destroyed down there immediately because they were built very good. But they had thousands of them, but no fuel to run the dang things. So they finally, right at the end, they had started making their everything run off of coal, burning wood, anything that burnt. They started running their tanks and stuff, their half tracks and everything. It was so close. It was so close. I hate to think about this, but I wouldn't even be here, and our children would be speaking German awful close. But I seen all this, but it's hard for me to even remember I seen it, because it seems so impossible. But their technology is so much greater, and their guns, they could use our bullets and their guns, but we couldn't use their bullets and our guns because of the size was different. Everything they did was so much superior to what we had. But there's one experience that I had that I can't forget, and that being a first scout, the scout and the communication person had to go in the towns first to check, just to make sure that they were clear, or there was no Germans there, or everything was okay, or whether there was or not. And we went into town with no problem. And I can remember communication guys standing there with his sling arms, with his M1 bouncing up and down on his toes, and he took a bullet right through the forehead, right between his eyes, and all hell broke out. So the place was heavily fortified with Germans. So I don't know how in the hell I did it, but I threw everything I had on me, my backpack, everything, and I took off running. I had to run gunfire both ways. I had a heck of a time finding my group because they took off. It was too much. And that's one experience that I can't forget. The bullet he took in his forehead, standing alongside of me, was horrible. Then another time, well, there were many battles where the Air Force would come in and bomb a town completely. The tanks would line up alongside of it, blow everything up. Everything was blown down to the ground. You couldn't believe anything could even live there. And then the infantry had to go in on foot and go through the buildings, and hundreds and hundreds of people came up, civilians would come out of the basements, and the Germans were still in there, and we'd have to go in. It was our job to clean it up, and many of us got shot then because they were hidden. And then but our forces were heavier at that time, so it didn't last too long. And then we'd move on out of the town and dig in outside of the town. The infantry would, and then the rear echelon would move in and take over which consists of the motor pool, all the food and stuff, and any officer above a three-stripe sergeant, they weren't in the front lines. They were always back to give orders, to make sure you did what you're supposed to do. Of course, you can't And it wasn't like Patton. So anyhow, none of them got killed. They were always safe back behind the lines. So, man, I went through many of them kind of battles. And so many of them the worst thing is, I guess, I wasn't at where they had the Holocaust, and it had all the Jews and fenced in, and they were taking their teeth, the gold out of their teeth, and they stripped them down, no clothes, and starved them to death. Thousands of them, and they had dug these trenches with the bulldozers, 25 feet or so wide and hundreds of feet long, deep, and as they would die, they would throw them in these trenches, and there's thousands of them piled on top of each other. And then they had the furnaces where they put them in and burn them. Smoke would come out and stink. Anyhow, I lost 2 months that I know of my memory completely. Something happened so bad that, and I don't want to know what it was. And I try my hardest to not remember any of this anymore. And when I got shot, we were come up to this town, which was on a hillside. The town was on the lower part of the hill, and the Germans had dug in with their heavy equipment and everything, machine guns, protecting the town, so they thought we were going to come in. And we come up behind them, and me being first scout, a sniper got me. When they dig in like that, they always have snipers in the rear looking for anything that might come up from the back. And the sniper was up in a tree and shot me, and I got a bullet through my first chest wall here, and it threw me down on the ground real hard. And I still have when I become a scout, they took my M1 away and gave me a Thompson submachine gun, which I never had one in my life. I didn't even know what they looked like. And they were so heavy, and with a 45 slug, that when you hit something, it'd tear everything all to pieces. And the long clips. So I was taught to take the part of them apart, the parts you put on against your shoulder, and throw it away, and the handle to hold it, throw it away, because you use the clip of 45 shells to hold on to, and you had nothing to bounce. You just had to hold it like this. You couldn't control it anyhow. You fired and just go like this. You couldn't hold. All you could do is strafe the side of buildings, and so I had that in my hand when I went down. I got shot in my left, and I had my little machine gun in my hand because it was like a pistol. And the Germans turned around, come out with their hands up. There was about a 10-minute thing is all it was, but there was a lot of damage done. There was different soldiers that had, one of them had his arm blown off, and another one had his jaw blown off, and so they come out with their hands up, and two of the German medics came over to me and picked me up and put the strap on me and put the arm sling and the whole works. And of course, we had a lot of injuries too, so our medics were pretty busy. And then we had all these prisoners then that we had to march back to the rear echelon, which was about couple of miles, I think. And they had the wounded, like me and the other wounded, march the German soldiers back to the rear echelon, where they would take and house them and take and do what they're supposed to do with them, I guess. And time went by, and when I first got back there, then they put me on a kearney. They wouldn't let me stand up or anything, and I was laid there for several days, and gangrene had set in my wound, and I finally got a airplane that took me to France hospital, and the wound was so bad that they had to stick a wire down through the wound. It hit my shoulder, went in here and hit my shoulder blade, bounced off the bottom, tore a hole, big hole, and then just a wire down there with the rags on the end of it to clean it out. And then they stick a tube in there to keep it, to drain it. So I have no use. This arm is, I can't tie a tie, and I can only go so high with it. And I never got any rehabilitation whatsoever. And my arm finally grew in a position to where it couldn't be fixed. So they didn't count that as part of my wound, if you can believe that or not. My hearing, big guns in my ear, my hearing's gone, but that was part of my pension. And I had shell shock, which in those days, today shell shock is what they call as something, PSP or some dumb name they get. All the Vietnam soldiers who got it, they didn't recognize that I had it also, because they didn't know what it was in those days. They called it shell shock. So my pension, so I got a $20 a month pension from the VA. No, $50 a month. I was 20% disabled. 20% disabled. So I went for 2000, the year 2000, before I realized I had got no information from the VA at all that I had any rights, had anything coming, just at 20%. In 2000, my niece, which had been dealing with veterans before on different things like this, found out about me and came down, and we spent 8 months, Salt Lake, one department to the other. We went there originally to get her, she's a CNA, went there originally to see if the VA would pay for her to take care of me. And they said they can't do that, but one of the, many people did talk about each department, nobody knows anything down there. Anyhow, they got to one, and the lady says, "Well, why don't you work on his pension? You're wasting your time there trying to get a little. He's entitled to more than what he's getting." So we did, and it took 8 months, and finally I'm 100%. I was 90 for a while, but they decided I was, if you can believe it, 2000, how many years is that? 17 years or something like that, on a $250 a month pension. So I'm real bitter as far as the VA goes. And my last big experience was my teeth. It took 9 months, and I still don't have them. They weren't any good when I got them.
Do you remember, that's a remarkable story. Do you remember what happened after you left the hospital in France? Did you come home?
Yes, I do.
Would you talk a little bit about after you got out of the hospital?
Yeah, well, when the war, D-Day had come when I was in the hospital. It was that late. So I was sent to Texas to muster out. Well, they had all these soldiers that had been through battle sent to Texas, and they didn't know what to do with them. So what they did was they had this rookie lieutenant that just got out of training, first lieutenant, to take us out and teach us how to dig foxholes, fire guns, and the whole works. So in the morning, every morning at 6 or 7 o'clock, we'd have to get up and go out on a march. Well, we'd get out, couldn't see the camp anymore, we'd sit down. And the lieutenant, he says, "Get up, come on, you got to do it." We told him to go to hell. So he had to accept that, and he did. So every morning we'd go out on this pony, trying to teach us how to fire a gun. You know, we didn't know nothing. We were stupid, a bunch of combat. Anyhow, word come down that they were asking for volunteers. Well, nobody ever volunteers in boot camp because all you do is go pick up cigarette butts. I volunteered. Lo and behold, it was Christmas time coming up, and they put me in the mail post office to sort mail and that sort of thing. And all my poor buddies were still going out. So here I am in there sorting mail. I'd get up at 9 o'clock and go in, and sleep in. So I gets in there, and pretty soon Christmas is over, and no more, don't need you anymore. So he says, report back to your officer, you're done. I didn't go back. I just kept every morning, I just get up and I go over to PX, or finally they caught me. It was 1 week before my discharge papers had come to where they were being transferred. So they put me on KP for 1 week, peeling potatoes. So that's what happened when I first got out of the service.
What happened when you came back to Utah? You get married?
Yes,
What happened then?
I had been going with this girl. We got together when we was 14 years old. And we had went together, and I went we didn't get married because I was going to go into service. I'm afraid I might not come back. And so there was from 14 years old to around 18, 19, we went together. So when I got back, we went immediately and got married within a week, as soon as I got out of the service. And we've been together ever since. She just died here in this facility in 1993. But we went together for 73 years or something like that, with the same woman. It was a miracle.
It's a wonderful story, is what it is.
And I don't know what it is, but I'm destined for something, but I don't know what, because I've had too many times that I was come within minutes of dying because of my health, which I'm fighting here now and can't seem to get anywhere with my diet. It's what I eat. And I just had a meeting day before yesterday, and their regulations here are so rough that you can't do anything. So I'm fighting that. And many things I've been fighting while I was here. Heat in there's no heat in the bathrooms in these places. The first week I was here, I took a shower and I got pneumonia and had to go outside to a hospital because of the heat. No heat. I've been fighting that ever since I've been here. Finally, because I complained so much, they're doing something about it now.
Can you, as you think about from the time you come back from war until now, how has those memories affected you? Thinking about what happened to you in...
I put them out of my mind. The only time they come up is when somebody asks me something about it. And the family keeps saying, write this stuff down. I have a great-grandson that's very interested in, and he wrote a lot of stuff down, took a lot of, he took my book that you get from the service with all your company and everything, and he's got all that, and he was going to make up something. But I haven't heard from him for a long time. But
Where does he live?
Huh?
Where does he live?
Payson.
What's his name?
Brian Payne.
Would you mind if I contacted him?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you have a phone number for him?
He would really be interested. He's the only one that really be interested.
Okay.
What's his age? How old is he?
How old do you think he is?
I don't know.
50, 60? Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, you know when they had this Washington thing?
Yeah?
He took me to that. Through the whole thing.
Oh,
He's
the
so
honor
interested.
flight where you flew back to Washington?
Huh?
Where you flew back to Washington DC?
Yeah, when
The
that
honor flight.
honor flight, when Utah went.
Talk about that. That'd be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the honor flight. What happened?
Well, there was veterans in wheelchairs, many of them. It took 2 very large buses. You were crowded like sardines in them. And you did more driving in buses than you did anything else. Very miserable. You ate your lunch and stuff sitting in a chair. 3 of you in a chair, and my grandson is big. He's real big. He's my bodyguard. He takes up 2 spaces. Well, I was squeezed in there among 2 other, a big guy, and I was miserable. The whole thing to me was horrible. The only good thing I got out of it was I can't even remember what that was, but there was some things that was okay. But I have the booklet and stuff there, and it tells all about it, and the pictures, and the mayor of Utah, Mayor Yorty, is it Yorty? He was there with his wife, and he went around and shook hands with all the veterans, and they had all the armed forces, and all you did was shake hands more, and people lined up, civilians, people lined up, and you shake hands, and you about shook your hands off. But otherwise, I'm trying to think of something I really enjoyed, and I can't.
You've explained why you got the Purple Heart. Do you have any recollection at all, why you might have got the Bronze Star?
Have none whatsoever.
Besides the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star, do you know what those ribbons across your cap are for? I see the European campaign, World War II campaign medal. I see the Bronze Star. I see the Purple Heart, but I don't know what the rest of them are for.
This one is the Battle of the Bulge,
Okay.
Purple Heart, and this one here is supposed to be a
Combat infantryman. Expert marksman.
no, it's something else we call
Let
it.
me look at it.
I don't know what.
I think that's the combat infantryman's badge with
Yeah.
a cluster, but
Yeah,
I'll check to be sure.
and then this one here is the European theater. It's got 2 stars on it, and that's good conduct medal. These say what they are on them, but I can't read it. And there's the 45th Division. That's the Thunderbirds.
Well, the Vearl, that's a remarkable story. Thank you. Yeah.
A couple follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Ask him about what his involvement was with the concentration camp. He kind of gave us a generic, but what was his part in that?
Were you at Birkenau or Auschwitz?
What?
Birkenau or Auschwitz, the concentration camps. Can you remember anything else? You talked about the trenches, but can you remember? What can you remember about?
Well, I can remember that the Russians would,
Oh, will you push your hat back up a little bit?
when
Okay.
we were guarding the camp, because the Jews that were still alive and stuff in there, the Russians were still coming at night and going in and killing them. We had to fight the Russians to keep them from killing the rest of the... Other than that, the other thing I can remember too, there was a town, probably, not very far, like some buildings over there, a whole town, and they claimed that nothing went on there. But the smoke was horrible. They couldn't help but smell it. And they were only less than 2 miles from it, probably a mile. And the people that lived there claimed that nothing ever happened there. Stupid.
You mentioned the Russians trying to kill the Jews.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to shoot or kill any of them Russians?
No. We just held them back is all, more or less. But they would come in with a knife, not with guns, so you couldn't hear them, and then stab them. Why? I have no idea what their problem was with the Jews, But that's about the only thing I can remember there at that point. And luckily I didn't have to stay there very long. Yeah.
What about some of the campaigns from the famous Battle of the Bulge?
But
Do you have any recollection of the campaigns or the battles you were involved in, aside of what you've already told us during the Battle of the Balls? Any specifics that you remember?
well, I can remember during the Battle of the Bulge is that we had taken this particular town and I can't remember exactly what happened. The Germans came and took it back again. And then we had to come back again. I can't remember exactly what happened. All I can remember is because the dead cattle blowing up, laying all blown up big, laying there for months or whatever it was, because of the nothing going on, otherwise just battling back and forth, nobody there. And dead animals laying around, and the mess everything was in. No people. There was people, but they were, I don't really remember a lot of it, really.
What about the weather? Was it cold?
No. I don't know, if maybe, it might be that if Brian's got information, he may have something that he got down that I had told him and I forgot already,
Well, I've got his name on tape, but tell me his name one more time.
All right, it's Brian Payne.
Payne.
P-A-Y-N. And I have, I think he's staying here in Payson now with his mother. She was here yesterday. And I think he's going to make a visit pretty soon to me coming here.
If we leave you our cards,
Yeah,
would you give him one and say, call these guys?
yes, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about what?
What about some kind of statement about honor to serve or something?
Oh. Again, I'm trying not to put words in your mouth, but could you talk just shortly, briefly about what it meant to you to serve your country and how you feel about that, what you did?
Well, the way I see it, World War II was for a purpose. And I did my duty, and I'm proud of it. And they asked me if I'd re-enlist again. I said yes. Now I talked to these Koreans and these. No, I wouldn't know. Yes, I may. I was so perturbed when I first got out. They asked me if I would re-enlist again, and I told them no, we'll go to hell. But I got to thinking about it later. Only the reason I said that was because of the officers. You were treated like a dog if you didn't have a rank. In my church, there's a retired colonel. He won't talk to me because I'm a PFC. He won't even look at me. He doesn't even know I exist. He's got it so damn thick in his mind that he's so much better the way I see it. Now, they claim it's not that. They claim it's the rank, it's not the person. Bullshit is all I got to say. Most of them, it's the rank. They got all this authority, and they use it. I shouldn't be that way, but that's the way I feel. If you want to know the truth.
That's all we want to know, the truth. A lot of men feel that way as well. It's not a story I haven't heard before. What else, Pete? Anything?
Is there any history of military service?
And anybody in your family serve as well? Your kids, your grandkids?
No, but there's one in my family that's in the service now. He's in the Navy. He's real high up in computers. I can't even think of his name now, but it's the only one I can think of that was ever in the service.
Okay. Well, I think we're done then.
All right.
But I would like, after saying we're done, we do have what we came after. But there might be, for some reason, we might want to come back again.
Yeah.
Would that be all right?
Sure.
Do
Just
this again?
make sure you give me your card so I can
I
give
will.
it to Brian.
Absolutely, we
Because I
will do that.
I definitely want you to talk to Brian because he'll be really
will.
interested in it. Because he could probably tell you things that I have forgot, you know. Especially when we was on that thing in Washington, things that I had said on things that we had seen and things that happened there that brought back memories. See?
I know this probably wasn't easy for you, but it is greatly appreciated. This is a real deal. This is no bullshit deal.
Well, thing I like most of all now is, which I have coming up, is they got a class for me coming up to talk to the school children about the Holocaust. And it's coming up pretty quick. So I went to several of those, and I'll go to any more that they ask questions is the thing. Because it's so unbelievable that they got to learn somehow, and the hearsay don't work. It's got to be from somebody that's been there, you know.
It does.
And
We have talked to, as a side note to the concentration camps, we have interviewed 3 world wars, including yourself, that were at either Birkenau or Auschwitz at a concentration camp. Until today, I had never heard about the Russians would come in with knives and kill the Jews. Never heard that before.
Well,
I don't doubt that for 1 minute.
I don't know whether I should have said that or not, but
No, I'm glad you did. I'm sure most people don't know about it. And I think I'm well versed about the German concentration camps.
well, somebody had to watch over them from
Yeah.
continuing on killing them.
Yep.
So,
What are some of the questions the kids would ask?
uh,
What are some of the questions the school children would ask?
oh,
you?
they. I wish I wish I'd have taken a recorder with me, because I forget so easily now. I can't remember anything anymore, and I have a recorder now, and I can't remember exactly what they were, but all I know is they were really enthused, and they one right after the other. There was no waiting time. There was one right after the other that was wanting to know, really curious about what went on. I couldn't believe how curious they were.
Maybe if you do the next one of us can come and tape it, film it. So,
Yeah, well,
so
even-
you'll have it.
Even if I took my damn recorder, I could record it, and it would help.
Yeah, it certainly would.